I finally figured out how to use my camera, and I also got a new microphone, but that's not what's important. What's important is that I have 2 mini sets that I'll be giving away today. Go ahead and leave a comment on this YouTube video, and I will respond to 1 comment down below with instructions to add my Discord, which is Clark HELLSCREAM. Don't fall for any of those scams. I will add you, Clark HELLSCREAM. My name is Tony Gabagool on Discord because it's a very funny name, and I will respond to 1 comment and then communicate via Discord DMs in order to get you that code. And we'll also be giving away another code on the Twitch stream over at twitch.tv/ClarkHELLSCREAM. So if you are excited for the mini set, go ahead and come on by the stream, because today I'm going to be talking about the cards that I believe have the most amount of potential. I'm not going to sit here and digest every single card because I feel like a lot of them really aren't worth talking about too much, but I want to talk about at least a little bit of the direction of the mini set, as well as the 4 decks that I have prepared for today. And as well, I'm doing variety gaming, if you guys didn't tell. I did an entire Pokemon stream yesterday for like almost 7 hours, and we're doing something a little bit crazy. We'll talk about that at the end of the video in case you guys want to see that variety content. But let's go ahead and talk about the cards of the mini set that I am the most excited for. Starting with the Death Knight cards. There are 2 cards that I believe are very good in this mini set, and I'll start with the one that isn't good. Story of Umbra. A lot of people are saying that this card is like, oh man, it's like the next like Nebula for DK, but the biggest issue that I foresee with a card like this is the fact that it's 7 mana. You have to mana cheat this with like an Elise location before this card even begins to be good, and even then, there are so many Death Rattle minions in between the 5 and 10 mana cost that hitting the Splitting Stone is really the only good option I can foresee, because not only do you get that 8/8, but you get those 4/4s immediately, and you are already storming the board. Other than like a Meadow Strider, I really can't imagine too many good options off of the Story of Umbra. But I will say that if it's discovered randomly, it does have some potential, but this is just not a card that I actually want to put in my deck. However, these other 2 cards I actually have plans for. Hollow Direhorn. 5 mana 5/4 rush. After a friendly minion dies, spend 3 corpses to gain reborn. I believe this is a primo card for Quest DK. Is Quest DK going to be good? Absolutely not, but let's just humor me and talk about how the deck is actually going to be functional now, because the biggest issue with that deck was actually having a good card that could spend corpses. It felt like Corpse Explosion was one of the only cards that really mattered in that deck, but now that we have a Hollow Direhorn, we have a reason to combine this with your Akanai Death Speaker. So that's just a lot of corpses that can be generated, as well as a lot of removal, very similar to how the Stuffy DK works, except now we can do this in Quest DK, because in order to make the Stuffy cards work, you have to run the Frost cards, the Frost Rune cards, and you just can't do that with the Quest. Now, the other spell that I believe has a lot of potential, the Soul Rest Ceremony. I will be showing you guys a deck here very soon all about egg DK, and this is a fantastic way in order to start cracking that egg 1 bit at a time, but there might be a lot of eggs you might be cracking all at once. So I believe that DK has a lot that it can do with this mini set. Demon Hunter, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not really that happy with the Demon Hunter cards. Horn of Feasting is fantastic, not only for Quest DK, but for just good removal, as well as another Outcast card that you kind of want to hit off of the Illidari Studies, and it is a way of generating your own tempo while removing your opponents. I feel like it's an okay card, but it's not going to bring Demon Hunter into a new level of play that it isn't already doing. Aggro Demon Hunter is still going to be on top, and these other 2 cards I really don't feel like are that good. However, Druid, on the other hand, Druid is massively benefiting from this mini set. I believe all 3 of these cards have potential to see play, starting with Long Neck Egg, which I want you to just look at the art. Notice all of the star-shaped flowers that are around this egg right now. A lot of Land Before Time references are here, and this literally is just Littlefoot's mom. It literally is just Littlefoot's mom. But regardless, you have Long Neck Egg, a 2 mana 0/2 Death Rattle, summon a 1/2 beast, give your minions +1/+1. This is a really good combination with Life Cycle in Druid, so you have a really good tool for Egg, Death Rattle, maybe Quest Druid. I don't know if Quest Druid 100% wants this, but you have a Token Druid that is actually somewhat playable, and within that Token Druid, you now have Panther Mask, which can set a minion stats to 5/4, give it stealth, and you also draw 2 cards. This is a fantastic card that something like an aggro or token deck really needs right now in Druid, because it just feels like once you play that one board, you're kind of just just dead in the water. So there might be a way of using this as just a really good way of drawing cards, as well as a way of turning your 1/1s into actual threats in order to immediately trade, or setting up damage going into the next turn. Panther Mask, I feel like, is a really good card. And then you have Seismopod, which I'm not gonna lie, 9 mana, 9/9 taunt elusive, good stats, really sticky minion. However, it is 9 mana at the end of the day, and its Death Rattle seems to incentivize, you know, still playing the game after it has been summoned. Death Rattle give all minions in your hand and deck +3/+3. So the way that I imagine this card being played is in some kind of taunt druid, because you could discount this with the 1/5 taunt that draws a taunt minion from your deck. You also have plenty of ramp, so you might be able to play this card somewhat consistently by turn 6, turn 7, but the biggest issue is, what are you doing after the fact? How are you supporting your deck, and how are you building it to where Seismopod buffs are actually going to matter? So I feel like in some kind of taunt deck, some kind of like deck that runs a lot of copy minions like Ziliax, and even a card that's coming up in the neutral set that I will talk about here in a second, I feel like there's actually a lot of potential for Seismopod being a really good card. I know that I said I wouldn't talk about everything, but all the Druid cards seem very solid to me. The Hunter cards, I'm gonna be honest, I really am only looking at Devilsaur Mask in terms of the cards that I believe are going to be good. This 1-drop isn't necessarily good or bad, but it doesn't really help the archetypes that Hunter has, except for maybe a Neri Hunter, but Neri Hunter doesn't really want to run a card like this, because if you're not getting guaranteed damage or a good 1-mana spell or a good minion to duplicate the stats of, which really is the weakest part of the card, then I don't think it really matters. This 8-drop, I don't know what they're doing with this. This looks like a Druid card or like a Warrior card or maybe even like a Warlock card or something like that. But the fact that it summons beasts, I guess it's a Hunter card, and Big Beast Hunter could be somewhat of a thing. I'm kind of excited by that. However, I really don't believe in the power level of this card, like, at all. I'm not going to rant too long about Mage, but I have to say one thing about Mage. I think that Sheep Mask is a fantastic card, 10 out of 10, extremely good. But then I look at Techisaurus and I'm just mad. This card is so, in my opinion, ridiculously bad, because you have to build your deck around getting cards that didn't start in your deck, so you could get coins from the Rogue class, for example, with your Skylotaurus, but then you have to discover and also play 7 cards, and I just feel like that is ridiculously difficult to do, and just to get a 0-mana taunt minion at the end of the day. It seems like way too much work for not enough payoff. And then there's Tribute Dance, which is a 5-mana spell, which I believe could be extremely good, because Mage doesn't really have that many transform effects right now. So if you want to stop, say, a Protoss Priest from getting a bunch of value if they play their Sentry a little bit later, then you could transform their Sentry into like a Wisp. Because the way this card works is that if you have a Wisp and a Sentry, you can either turn your Wisp into the Sentry, or you could turn their Sentry into the Wisp. Same thing with like a Ragnaros. Your opponent has a big Ragnaros, you can just take that minion for yourself and just let the dice figure out where that fireball is going, or you can just turn into a 1/1 if you need to stabilize yourself. So I don't know. I feel like Mage has some potential, especially with Sheep Mask being a fantastic card, destroying a big minion and destroying a board while you're at it, as long as you kill that 1/1. So Mage has some potential, but not gonna lie, Techisaurus just really makes me mad. Paladin, Firegill. This might as well be Battlecry, give your other Murlocs Rush, dude. Like, this is just going to be the best card in Murloc Paladin, because you now have one of the weaknesses being patched up majorly for Paladin right now. One of his biggest weaknesses was the fact that it can't really heal itself, or it couldn't have a lot of rush minions, and now Murloc Paladins are going to destroy your board and then stick a board of their own, and it is just going to feel really annoying, in my opinion. Hatching Ceremony, I'm not going to talk about this card. Why would I play this when I have Crusader's Aura in the deck? Nothing more to say there. Hero's Welcome, kind of a funny card. Maybe you could do something with Ursul. However, it is way too slow, and random legendary minions are often very bad. You are essentially discovering for a keyword with this card, not necessarily discovering for a legendary. You want a rush card, a taunt card, a lifesteal card, one of those types of things, right? But usually random legendaries, very bad. Priest has Behemoth Mask, which I don't feel like I need to talk too much about this card. It feels like it's going to be massively good. If Priest has Resuscitate deck still being very good, then suddenly you turn a 2/2 into an 8/10 that has lifesteal, forces an attack, gains you health, and also sticks a very big minion. Not to mention all of the ways that you can randomly discover this card. Very good card. Ritual of Life, not necessarily that much. I feel like it's just a Creature of Madness for Priest and maybe support for Quest Priest, but not really a good card. Atlasaurus, I love this card, by the way, just because of the art. I love the card art of a lot of the dinosaurs in this set. There might be something with like a big priest, maybe like a Twilight medium deck that tries to scam out this card very early. But unless priest has a way of generating this minion over and over and over again with like maybe Rest in Peace, which doesn't seem like that good of an idea in my opinion, then I'm not really sure how viable Atlasaurus is going to be right now. But it is a very interesting card in a way that I would actually want to play Priest at the end of the day. Not going to lie. I like this card. I'm not going to lie. Rogue kind of infuriates me a little bit, but they did at least get a cool legendary with a 3-mana 3/3 Elemental Beast. While in your hand, this is a 3/3 copy of the last minion your opponent played. There's a lot of mind games that could happen with this if you have Elise enabled in your deck with 10 different cost cards. If your opponent plays an Elise, you can get that value immediately after them. So that was one of the first ways I thought about using this card, but overall, not gonna lie, the other two cards, not really that impressive. Like Crystal Tusk, okay, this still doesn't make Quest Rogue good, even though this is the best shuffle card in the deck, but there's not anything else that is available for Quest Rogue in this mini set, so the deck's lethality and its lack of survivability is still completely missing and just non-existent. While you have Costume Merchant in typical Rogue fashion, they are getting a card that can get a very select amount of cards from a very restricted pool. It is a Battle Cry, get a random mask from another class, so you can get yourself a Behemoth mask, a Sheep mask, a Devilsaur mask, a Panther mask, and I think there's one more mask that is on this list, or a Bat mask. So those are all of your options, and honestly, it feels like if the Rogue gets their hands on the Devilsaur mask, that is probably going to be the best card they can get their hands on, because it gets discounted to 6, you play prep, and now suddenly you have an 8/8 charge for 4 mana. So that feels like the best way to utilize this card, but all of the other cards kind of feel like they're not necessarily that good, unless maybe you can roll something with like the Behemoth mask or something like that. But the point that I'm trying to make is that this card is too random, and the options are way bad if you don't high roll the right option. So Bat Mask might just be a bad option for the Costume Merchant. Shaman cards, it pretty much comes down to if you're playing elemental decks, maybe these two cards make the elemental decks a little bit more powerful. You have Fire Breath being an actual way of burning down your opponent as well as buffing your board. Seems like a great way of utilizing this card. I guess I really am just talking about every single card now. While Chill Spine Stegodon, I don't really believe in it, but it's a way of making elemental decks have a way of stalling your opponent to make the Fire Breath a little bit more impressive. So maybe these two cards could be good, but at the end of the day, I still believe Elemental Shaman is completely unplayable. While Tor Totem, Quest Shaman support. I mean, not exactly the greatest card, but when I was making my Quest Shaman builds, I had no good totems in the deck. Like, no good totems in the deck. And now suddenly you have a totem that helps you fulfill your requirements a lot easier, as well as giving you minions that keep helping you complete your quest. So there might be some actual potential for Tor Totem, and I might revisit Quest Shaman literally because of this one singular card. I am omega excited for Warlock to the point where I am going to show you guys the Possessed Animancer Warlock immediately after I get through these cards. It is by far my favorite archetype to mess with right now outside of like the egg decks, and when I start playing today, oh boy do I feel like I'm gonna have a ball. But I gotta tell you guys a bit of a funny story. When I first saw Asphyxiodon, this was the first card that I saw from Warlock, and I was ready to make a tweet at Hearthstone being like, bro, what is this? This is absolutely terrible. I am never gonna spend mana on this card. I never want to play this from my hand. An 8 mana 6/10 that only deals 5 damage and it can't even go face. Why would I do that? And then I saw Possessed Animancer and I'm like, oh, so you want me to give this minion lifesteal essentially and pull it from the deck for free. Now I get what you're trying to push with this card. Because if this gets summoned from your deck by like turn 6, turn 7, it's not like the most insane thing in the world, but you gain 5 life immediately. You put up a taunt that has lifesteal and it actually can get in the way and restore your health a massive amount. Not to mention, you could put Gigasaur in the deck. We'll talk about this deck in great detail here in a second. But the Warlock cards are absolutely just S tier, exactly what I want from a mini set, because when you look at Bat Mask, if you remember Hyreek the Bat, imagine that with any minion that you want to make work with this. Like, there are 3 options, 3 ideas that I have with this card, but I will discuss them on my stream because I feel like they are turbo memes. They're not really decks that you should try to do on day 1 unless you are just going balls to the walls, having a lot of fun. But I will tell you one card I have an idea with this. Kara, the Warlock legendary, the one that has spell burst, because if you can somehow discount the Bat Mask, have some shadow spells on deck, and then play the Bat Mask on that 3 mana legendary, then you will have 6 of those Karas that will not lose their spell burst. You play shadow cards, and then you just absolutely suck the life out of your opponent. So that is one like really funny idea that you can do. I don't think it's going to be meta relevant by any means, but there is some honest to God potential with these Warlock cards. And now we got to the Warrior cards. Not gonna lie, the Warrior cards I feel like are a little underwhelming. Guard City, summoning taunts, cool. That's nice and all. Barricade Basher, whenever you gain armor, gain +2/+2 and attack a random enemy minion. If only we had Risky Skipper and Armor Smith, right? Like, this card is just... It feels like it has too much setup and not enough payoff in standard right now. And then you have the Great Draco Rex, which I think... I love this card. Love the art on this, by the way. 8 mana, 5/12 with Rush. After this attacks an enemy minion, it damages all other enemy minions. So essentially, it's like a board cleave, which is pretty decent, not gonna lie. If there's a way of giving this thing, like, poisonous, I wonder if that would just be an automatic board clear. But I think what they're trying to push here is you want to buff this card in hand at least a little bit, right? Like, get this thing up to, like, 7, 8 attack, and then storm an entire board, and then it's just a massive cleave on top of saving the board that you already have. Maybe there's some potential for like an Enrage Warrior using this type of card. I've been stuck on the Enrage Warrior Copium, and I cannot find a good enough deck in order to really showcase what the deck can do. But I've had some nutty games with Enrage Warrior, but none of those games really wanted to go into the late game. So I'm not really sure if this is going to be that good for Enrage Warrior in particular. However, I love the card, and I hope it can find play at least a little. And now we're talking about the neutrals. I'm not going to spend too much time on them because I've already have a video talking about the Egg and the Beast Speaker Taka. But now that all of the cards are out, I can definitely say that I'm ready to cook with the Egg. I think Beast Speaker Taka is an absolutely terrible card. Holy Egg Bearer, absolutely a great card for the Egg decks, but if you really want to put this in with anything else, it doesn't really seem like it works. It's just essentially the Draw the Egg of Kellos card, and this card is essentially worthless. So now that we've talked about all of these mini set cards, let me show you guys the 4 decks that I have in mind for my first day of the mini set. This first deck is actually the deck I am the most proud of because it is yet again another deck that uses buttons in DK as a way of just drawing a bunch of cards, and we are just trying to crack the egg as many times as we can, and we can generate multiple eggs with Brittlebone Buccaneer, Orbital Moon, as well as Eternal Layover, generating extra copies of the Egg of Kellos. So this is not just a deck that is trying to play the egg, play Corpse Explosion to get a 20/20 as quickly as possible. You want to get many 20/20s, so that way if your opponent deals with one, suddenly they have to deal with the other minions that you are generating. So you are essentially a deck that is primarily focused on controlling the board. You have Ice Crown Brochure as the Frost card in this deck in order to give the buttons a draw 3 potential, and the cards that you can draw from the buttons are the Ice Crown Brochure, the Molten Magma, and very, very importantly, your Corpse Explosion or your Soul Rest Ceremony. So you are directly drawing the cards that you need to not only survive, but to help pop off the combo. So buttons is an absolute keep in this deck. I will be optimizing this as I do my stream. I think Brittlebone Buccaneer, for example, might be a card that just gets cut because I don't want to just use this with the egg, but that's why I have the Dreadhound Handler and the Chillfallen Baron as other death rattles to really help give this card a little bit of extra gas, because you can't just only use this with the egg, otherwise that's just kind of a bad card inclusion, right? So Egg DK is by far the deck I am the most excited for, except for this other one. This other one might take number 1 depending on which one is more meta relevant. The Animancer Warlock. I feel like this deck has insane potential, and I am not going to lie, this gives me massive Q-Block vibes, and if there's a way to make this deck meta-relevant, I'll be playing a ton of Warlock in order to relive that nostalgia. Because essentially, the one thing I really want to point out about the Possessed Animancer is that, very similar to Possessed Lackey, this card is being completely underestimated, because if you play this by turn 6, your opponent has to respect it one way or another. It's not just a 6 mana 2/2, it is a 6 mana 2/2 that if you kill it and don't answer the threat that comes out of it, you are going to get hit with an Ultra Gigasaur, with a Meadow Strider, Asphyxiodon. There might be some other beasts to put in here, and that's why I put in a Krog the Crater King, because sometimes you might be going up against a deck that has a lot of tempo and a lot of big minions, so if you play your Possessed Animancer, trade it, and then get Krog, you now don't have to worry about the board threat all too much. So I think that's a really good inclusion. But there's also the case of your opponent not killing the Animancer, very similar to how people didn't kill the Lackey back in the day, and then you just immediately devour it with the Carnivorous Cubicle, and it's just like Cube Warlock, dude. You have Elise for 5 mana location in order to play for copy on the Animancer immediately on turn 6. You have the typical, you know, Ultralisk location possibilities of removing the board so you keep yourself alive. It is just a matter of figuring out the perfect 30 for this deck. I really believe there is something that is possible here, and I am going to crack it immediately over at twitch.tv/ClarkHellScream. So make sure you are there for the Cube Warlock resurgence. And speaking of Warlock memes, I have to tell you guys my Egg Warlock meme idea. Because it's essentially just like the Egg DK, right? Where I have ways of giving the Egg reborn. I can utilize the Egg by killing it off and drawing a bunch of cards. Like, I have cards that utilize the constant minion always being on the board, right? Well, what if we utilize the Bat Mask on top of it? Oh, yeah. Full utility. I'll stop saying that word now. But you can use the Bat Mask in a very awesome way, where if you're on the last stage of the Egg, you can turn that Egg into a 1/1, immediately trade it if there's something on the board to not only give yourself the 20/20, but now you have 6 other Eggs on the very last stage that when they die, they will turn into a 20/20 minion. So I feel like there's a lot of potential with Bat Mask in this regard, but this is still a bit of a meme in my opinion. Bat Mask is just such an interesting card that I feel like there has to be something that it can do that's meta-worthy, but in terms of the meme potential, this card has a lot that you can just do with it. So if you like the idea of making multiple eggs and forcing your opponent to eat as many eggs as Gaston, oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. The Egg DK and the Egg Warlock are called Gaston DK and Gaston Warlock, and we'll hopefully have an entire video dedicated to those archetypes. The last deck that I have prepared is essentially just Control Warrior. It's just, you know, Quest Control Warrior, but you run the Egg, you run the cubes, with the idea of, once I have my Time Warp, I'll kill off the eggs, play the 20/20s, and then go face for a bunch of damage. It's not exactly the most glamorous thing in the world, but it is a way, in my opinion, to actually use the Egg in a very legitimate way to win the game. So I feel like there's a lot of potential with these cards, right? It is just very dependent on how it is going to register with the community, on whether or not it is balanced and fun. I need this thing to be fun. That's what I'm really looking forward to. And now let's talk about variety gaming, because when Hearthstone's not fun, I have been going to some other stuff, man. I have finally been doing my own thing and playing Pokemon on stream, where we are doing a Nuzlocke challenge, and for the rest of this week, I am going to see how far I can go in my Nuzlocke challenge. And just to give you guys an idea of the madness that's happening, here's a clip that happened. Ooh, what? Oh my god! It's not cheat! It's just random, dude! I'm just buying 99 of these. I'm just it's immediate. Give me for free? You're giving these out for free. I'm gonna buy as many of these as I can, and I'm gonna reverse engineer the Master Ball, and I'm gonna sell it for millions of dollars and become this world's Steve Jobs. I literally generated infinite Master Balls because I'm doing a Pokemon randomizer on my stream, and we are just letting the full randomness take the wheel. I did not intend this. This is a Nuzlocke challenge where we're catching the first Pokemon in each and every single route. If a Pokemon dies, we have to release it. We're not using items in battle. We're allowed to use items outside of battle to keep our, you know, we have random items that we find, and it's also, we find an item on the ground, it's completely random. I've already found a Master Ball in the wild as well. So if you guys like Pokemon Nuzlocke challenges, and if you want to see something that's not Hearthstone because it might be driving you crazy like it is me at times, we will be, after doing Hearthstone every single day, switch to the Pokemon category, and we are going to see how far during this week that we can play our Pokemon grind. And on top of this feels like a good idea to just say this at the end of the video. I currently have a list of a bunch of games that I'm going to be playing, and at the end of the week, I am going to switch games, and then at the end of the week, I will try to use that footage in order to make a high-quality YouTube video, so that way I can show you guys over here on YouTube the fun that I have been having, as well as, you know, making some higher quality content, some evergreen content, in case Hearthstone doesn't do so well. I'm not quitting the game. I'm not quitting Hearthstone. I am doing all of this in addition to Hearthstone. So if you guys want to support the channel, it really does mean a lot if you hit that subscribe button to help us continue actually playing games for fun instead of only focusing on revenue and only focusing on income, because that's when content creation doesn't become fun and it just becomes a tedious chore. So thank you guys all for making it to the end of this video. If you did make it this far, let me know what you guys think about the mic. Don't forget to leave a comment down below if you want to get a mini set potentially for free. Thank you to Blizzard for the codes. Thank you to you guys for helping me realize my potential dream with Variety Gaming, and we'll see you for the next video.